Okay, so welcome to the Midlife Momentum podcast. I am very happy today to have a guest with me. Her name is C. Decker, and C is a dedicated women's health advocate with over 2 decades of experience in life sciences and diagnostics. And she's specializing in women's health, sexual health, and oncology. As she was living her own perimenopause journey, C recognized a significant gap in the critical life phase that we're going through. So, her mission has become to demystify menopause, equipping women with the necessary tools and knowledge to navigate this phase confidently and positively. And that mission drove her to write the book, Menopause, A Guide to Your Unique Journey. And I've invited her to the podcast today because her mission is quite parallel to my own mission. And I know we're going to have a great and open discussion about perimenopause and menopause and how we can best navigate this time of life. So, welcome to the podcast, C.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you joined us today. So, I just want to go right to your book and just ask you what brought you to writing a book about menopause?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting because, as I was entering my 40s, I was experiencing a number of symptoms that I would not know to attribute to perimenopause, but in hindsight, they were. The first, big challenge I had was around sleep. And I would often wake up around 2 or 3 in the morning and not be able to fall back asleep. Like my brain would just be kind of like all wired up. And this would last sometimes, for sometimes days, sometimes actually even weeks. So you can imagine that how exhausted that can leave someone. But on top of that, I was noticing things like anxiety was increasing, like my joints were aching, just kind of these various symptoms. And it really wasn't until I had a discussion with my sister. She's 7 years older than me, and she actually herself had, gone through her menopause journey, and she kind of told me some of these experiences she had, and it was very similar to what I was having. I was like, oh, well, then this is the reason why I must be having it, and then in that discussion, I heard, about her biggest symptom that she had was tied to anxiety, and how at one point she had a very stressful job, and it led her to be kind of almost like a depression state, right? So I think these are the kind of things that it's very common symptoms that women are experiencing, but we're not understanding that it could be attributed to perimenopause, right? Or one of the symptoms of it. So I think, because of the challenges that I've had, in the personal experiences, and seeing that, the more I talk about with my friends and, and other women, it's eye-opening that women don't know much about it, right? They're not educated on it. Their doctors, their OBGYNs, their primary care physicians are not talking to them about it. So I mean, for me, I would love it if, women in their late 30s, early 40s are educated that, hey, you will be entering the stage that you would possibly be experiencing some of these symptoms, and they're totally normal. And, here are some, methodologies to help you, kind of minimize these symptoms, right? So I think that's what I really want to see for women out there.
Okay. Yeah, there's so much in what you said. I mean, there's so many ways that we can recognize that we're in perimenopause, and but a lot of us do not know until we're actually in it and experiencing a symptom or more symptoms that this is actually attributed to perimenopause, or even to know the word perimenopause, because I didn't even know the word existed. So, and it helps though to have you had a sister who was 7 years older than you. So it does help to have people to talk to. But I do love that you've put it out there in the way of a book, in the way of being able to put it into words of what we would be experiencing, and that you're looking at younger women,
Mhm.
women who are in their late 30s, early 40s, before they're likely to experience any of these symptoms, although women of those ages could,
Mhm.
but generally it's around, mid 40s. But I love that you've targeted it to that age group too, because it is so important that we start educating younger women on what's going on and what to expect. Like this is what to expect. So I really appreciate that. And I know in the book you talk about there's 5 solutions, I guess, to the book, in the book that you talk about. So, what are those 5 areas that you sort of specify in there?
Yeah, so I mean, the kind of top 5 things to kind of help you mitigate some of the menopause symptoms. One is tied to your diet, right? Second is exercise. Third is stress management. I think that's actually very critical during this time, as well as sleep. And then the last one is tied to targeted symptom relief, right? So that it's not the systemic approach that maybe was done in the past, but it's more targeted to what symptoms you're experiencing and what things you could do to alleviate them.
Okay. Okay. So I love that too because I've actually come up with pretty much the same areas that I focus on in my coaching practice. So I haven't written a book, but I do appreciate the same similar areas. Although the last one that you mentioned, which I think is super important to have other ways of dealing with these symptoms and other things we can look at. I, in my case, as a coach, I focus on how do you start prioritizing yourself? Because I think a lot of times that women, when we get to this phase of life, is we haven't been prioritizing ourselves. So we might be missing some of these symptoms. We might not be noticing they're happening, or we might be noticing it and it's gone on for a long time and then we have to address them. So I think at this point in life, it's time where we have to stop and actually pay attention to ourselves. And I love that you've done this in this book as well, just bringing these things to our attention. So I know there's one area in particular, like you mentioned earlier, that helped you in the beginning because the first thing you noticed was you were having issues with sleep. So what happened during that time, in like what kind of sleep issues were you having, and how did you go about resolving them?
Yeah. So for me, the sleep issues were tied to um, I was able to fall asleep, but then I would frequently wake up around 2 or 3 in the morning and not be able to go back asleep. And I just distinctly remember my husband, at the time he would just say like, "Why can't you just fall back asleep?" And because like I think for someone who's not that stage, they don't understand like why you just just fall back asleep, but you can't. I mean, because your body. Because of the changes in your hormones, right, between progesterone and as well as estrogen, like you're not able to handle anxiety the way you used to. And part of that is also relates to that is that when you're sleeping, because of that, your relaxed state is not quite there the way it used to be. And so when you wake up in the middle of the night, it's really hard for you to go back to sleep. And so that's definitely one of the things I experienced. And in part of doing the research for the book, really trying to understand what are the different strategies that you can do to help improve your sleep during this time.
Okay. So yeah, so what are a few things that worked for you when you were trying to sorry, I'm gonna have to cough. I'm gonna have to cut that part out. Got a frog in my throat.
No problem, no problem.
So let's start that again. So what were some of the things that worked for you that you outline in the book when you were trying to get, back to sleep at 2 or 3 in the morning?
Yeah, so I mean, a couple things. I realized that if I'm not able to fall asleep, within like about 20 minutes, is to really, not try to struggle anymore and just get up out of the bed and move to another place. Often I'd go out to the living room, I would just try to do some kind of calm breathing exercises. And then follow it up with I have like one of those kind of apps where you can use it for like soundscapes or sleep stories. And so for me, listening to one of the sleep stories whenever I get up in the middle of the night and I can't fall back asleep is to do that. So that's what I would do as part of strategy. But then looking to it further, things that can help improve just not being more relaxed when I'm sleeping, or I guess as I'm preparing to sleep, is to also kind of have a bedtime routine. So, going to bed at a consistent time, but not just that, but an hour before I'm planning to go to bed is to actually, cut off like the technology, right? So like, put down the phone, the laptop, and, do things that, that are kind of advocating like the self-care that you mentioned, right? So, whether it's, giving yourself a mini facial, like in the bathroom, or, reading, journaling, as well as, and journaling could also be just putting down your to-dos for the next morning so that they're not in your head, right, before you fall asleep. So I think those are some of the things from a, a standpoint of you could do before bed. But also, make really the bedroom your place for sleeping only. So I know some people might have, electronics or even like a TV in their room, right? So, but in general, making the bedroom a place for you to fall asleep and only for sleep is I think very good. Having a room that's much cooler. So 65 degrees, Fahrenheit, and that's about 18 degrees Celsius, so around that temperature is good for your body for when you're sleeping. So to kind of minimize the kind of hot flashes that you might have in the middle of the night. As well as the bedding you use, make sure it's breathable, like cotton or silk. And in addition to that, I think, a couple of other things you could think about more holistically, right, is, tied to what you eat and exercise you're getting. For example, avoiding caffeine and alcohol 6 hours before you go to bed can help you, potentially fall asleep faster. And, and if you wake up, you might be able to go back to sleep easier. So those are kind of things that also would be good to do. At least some of the strategies that I've worked on and that have worked on for me. Yeah.
Okay. So you list a lot of things here. So there's a lot of different things that we can do. And I recognize a whole bunch of them because there's things that I've actually done or I work with my clients on because I do have a very similar philosophy to you as well in terms of, it being a holistic process.
Yes.
And it's not, everything's connected. So if we're not sleeping well, it could be related to the fact that maybe we're not exercising enough or getting enough fresh air or eating properly, or maybe we're having caffeine too close to bedtime, or maybe we're drinking alcohol and that's really not agreeing with us
Mhm.
right now, right? So these are all issues. And I know personally too, um, I'm having very similar issues to what you've been talking about in that I generally don't have trouble falling asleep. It's staying asleep, and I wake up now several times a night. Sometimes I can get right back to sleep, but other times I'm awake. I'm like awake, and that's just so new for me because I was never like that.
Yep.
So, and like you, for me, what I do find helpful, I have the Headspace app, so I use that, and they have sleep casts on there. Those are great, and I do use them. And I do cut off technology before bed. I try to. Of course, one of the things I try to advocate for is like keeping your technology away from you. But of course, if I wake up during the night, I've got to go get it if I'm going to listen to a sleep cast. So I
That is
realize that
true,
there's like
yes.
yeah, there's that part of it too, but it does overall help me, so I'm willing to do that. But that's just the one thing where I have to be careful not to be tempted then to go look online for anything else. Just go to the app and open it, and that's it. And the journaling idea I think is so good because like you said, even your to-dos, it's anything that's stuck in your brain that you stuck on a loop that you just keep thinking over and over and over again. And those are the things we end up keeping in our head. So if we can get them out right before bedtime and just sort of empty our brains and calm our brains, we go to sleep with a calm brain.
Yep.
And I think that's so key. So many really, really good things here. So are you sleeping any better now? Has it been helping you with these strategies?
Yes, no, definitely. I mean, definitely a noticeable improvement. Obviously I still will on occasion have, moments where, like where I will have to wake up, like 2 or 3 again. And I feel with sleep, it's one of those where it's good to have this arsenal of tools that you can leverage, right? So that maybe, yeah, sometimes, like the calm app will work, but then, or the sleep app will work, but then sometimes you need something else, right? So I think having kind of kind of an arsenal of tools that you can try and use depending on what may or may not work that time for you. A couple of other things, I had mentioned earlier, but, obviously supplements, some supplements actually help a lot of women with their sleep as well. So magnesium being one of them, melatonin is obviously another one that people use, but like that's the one where I would say to not use it sparingly so that it doesn't affect your own internal cycle. But in addition to that, there's other things such as valerian roots that people can try, as well as CBD, the with or without the THC. So depending on if that works for women too. So I think that's something. Sometimes you need that extra help beyond just some of the other tools. So
Yeah, yeah, no, those are all really good ones too, and I do agree with those. The supplements, I know I'm trying magnesium. I'm not sure if it's working yet, but that is something that I am in the midst of right now, trying the extra magnesium. And I haven't tried any of the others, like the melatonin, I haven't tried. But to me, melatonin would be if you're off cycle, like if for some reason you are jet lagged or you were on a different time schedule and now you've changed time schedules. Sometimes I think, okay, well, that's a good case for melatonin.
mhm,
Otherwise, I'm not too sure either if it's a great thing because you could become reliant on it.
yeah,
But yeah, I think there are some good products out there, including the teas like chamomile, valerian could be good teas to have as well.
mhm,
Really, really good things. Like I call it a sleep toolbox. So you have something, all
yes,
these tools, like you said, in a toolbox, in
mhm,
your mental toolbox, maybe they're
yes,
not in a
mhm,
physical toolbox, but just that you have plan, because like you said, sometimes one thing will work and sometimes it won't, and so you need to go to the next one. What's the next thing I can try? And the other thing you said earlier, and I think is really important, is that you don't stay in bed for too long awake.
yeah,
And like I've heard that too, I've read about that, just the because then you're going to start associating being in bed with being awake.
yes, exactly,
And so it's just to break that association and just to go do something else or get out of bed and go to a chair or something else. So you're physically out of bed if it's taking that long to go to sleep. So I really, really like those ideas, and that not having the TV in the room. That's another big one.
yeah,
I think a
yeah,
lot of people like their TVs in the room. I remember years ago, I was in my room and we had a TV in the room. This is like 20 years ago, maybe. A
mhm, mhm,
CSI. I was watching CSI on and it was just like the worst thing I could possibly do. I was up for like 2 hours after the show because it just wakes you up. It's
yeah,
stimulating. And
yes,
the TV was in my room. I was in bed, so I was starting to associate in my bed with CSI,
yes,
which isn't very good. So yeah, ideally have those things outside your room and use your bed for sleeping. As I've been told, use your bed for sleeping or sex. Those are
yeah,
the
that's exactly,
two
yeah,
things that should be going on in your bed, nothing else.
yeah. Agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So those are really good things. So aside from from sleep, because I know there's other areas that you were talking about, do you find like if you do want to sleep better, is there an area that works better for you then to focus on? Is it like if you do exercise, is that the next best thing to do, or is it the way you're eating, or is it stress? Is there one that you would say is okay, well, if you're not sleeping, then maybe start looking at this area, or what would you say about that?
Yeah, while they're all like interconnected, and I think for different people, it impacts them differently, right? So sometimes, exercise would be enough, like maybe, like just adding the exercise routine would help them sleep better. In some cases, for example, what you eat, for example, for some women, like eating spicy food can induce hot flashes. So like, maybe reducing the spicy food would actually help you. And, alcohol, as we mentioned before, some women, in this stage, alcohol impacts them a lot more than it used to. So, so then that would help you with the sleep. Anxiety is definitely a big one. So because your body isn't able to handle the stress as it used to. I mean, I feel that, and that's often kind of an ignored one as well, right? Uh, because women are often at this time of their life, there's already a lot of stress in their life, right? They're whether it's tied to their career or their personal life, with having kids and at the house, at the time. So I think all those combined can make it a very stressful situation, and things that maybe you could handle before, you're not able to handle now. So having ways to cope with stress can definitely help with falling asleep and staying asleep too.
Yeah, yeah. Stress is a big one, right? Like and it's the way our hormones are now working because they're changing and we're not so cushioned from the cortisol anymore. Even if we haven't changed anything in our routine, all of a sudden we're feeling more anxious or more stressed, even though our exercise, our food, everything has stayed the same, we're still not feeling so good. And it really does play on you. But I don't think we do realize, sometimes we don't realize till we get to this point in life how much we've got on our plates.
Yeah.
And women are very, very hard on themselves, and there's a feeling that we have to be doing it all. And
Mhm.
I think that needs to change, because I think we're the very first, if not just the second generation, to think that we have to have everything, and everything has to be done to a certain standard.
Yeah.
So it was never like that before. We didn't have to juggle like work and commute and family obligations and going to the gym, and none of this was like, they weren't like all these different areas of life that we had to worry
Yeah.
about, and now we do. So when we do hit this time of life, I think the stress of it just shows up in the form of, either belly fat, which, a lot of my clients come to me about. That's usually the first thing that they notice. It's one of the first things I noticed,
Mhm.
or hot flashes, or anything, or just that higher anxiety all of a sudden. Like, why am I so anxious all of a sudden? I never had problems with anxiety. Those kind of things are things that show up because of stress. So yeah, I do think stress is a really big one.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, and I think the more you can find ways to, because it's so stress also kind of ties into the self-care piece that you were mentioning before too, right? That at this point in our lives, we actually need to prioritize that. It's kind of like, when they say in the airplane, right? Put your own oxygen mask first. And that's very important, because you're not going to be able to, help others if you're not, if you yourself, are deprived, right? of the, of what you need. So I think it's very important for women to understand that self-care isn't being selfish. I think that's, sometimes people associate those two together, and, and that's a shame, right? Because if the more you can, fulfill what you need, the more you're able to give too. So I think that's, it accumulates, and it's not, detracting from the other people in your life. I think that's something I wish more women would understand. Yes.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I just did a podcast episode about that, about being selfish,
Mhm.
because I think it's a bad word for a lot of women. It's the last thing they want anybody to ever say about them is that they're selfish.
Mhm. Yeah.
And we have like this allergic reaction to that word where it's like, no, I'm not being selfish. We get very defensive.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's not bad. It's not a bad thing. We do need to put ourselves first. It has to happen, because if it doesn't, nobody else is going to do that for us, first of all. Nobody's coming to our rescue, and I think that we have to understand that. Nobody's going to say, "Hey, I think you're working too hard. I don't think you should, I think you should start taking some time for yourself." It's very rare that that's going to happen in your life. People are not going to do that, and we can't wait on that. We have to take care of it ourselves. But it's also recognizing, as you said, that when we take care of ourselves, everybody else benefits,
Mhm.
because we're just show up better everywhere. We're more rested for work, and we're more alert, and we can make better decisions, and we're more available to our children who need us, or our parents, our aging parents who need us. We're more available, more patient with the people in our lives. And I think we overlook the value of that
Mhm.
because we just think it's about us being physically present all
Yes.
the time, but that isn't what it's really about. We want it's the quality and not the quantity. I think that we need to really see.
No, 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 definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, you too, you have a career, you have children, you know, you're trying to juggle all this. Do you have anything like have you started doing things differently in order to help yourself with the stress?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's about, taking some time for myself, right? So for example, whether it's, going to get a massage or a facial, I actually do acupuncture, as well. So that's something that I find, one is it's very calming. And for anyone who hasn't done it, it's actually a very calming thing to do. I know it sounds a little bit, it could sound a little, like maybe not so comfortable, right? So you have needles sticking you, but actually, I promise it's actually very,
Mhm.
very, very relaxing. But then, like, but taking these times where, like, for example, one of the things that I do when I wake up actually is to do about a 20-minute workout routine. And that's, something so that I can be, kind of energized for my day to start. And so I do get up earlier than the rest of my family to have that alone time. So for me, it is important for me to have that kind of time to myself before everyone else gets up. And, and starting the day, part of it is also, getting that workout routine, in some ways out of the way, right? Because then afterwards, then I feel like I can, focus on other things too. But if I didn't do that, I feel like I would never be able to do it. So it's just finding the times for you to interject, the self-care that you need is important.
Yeah, yeah, I love I'm that morning person too who's always gotten up before everybody else because that is the time for me too where I feel like I have me time. Like and I don't feel then later on that I didn't get time for myself. Because I find with a lot of women that I do work with, there's this resentment that starts to build up
Yes.
over time where if you haven't taken the time for yourself, which by the way is totally on us to do, we have to make this happen. Nobody's going to make it happen for us. But if we don't do it, there's a resentfulness that starts to build up and we start taking it out on ourselves by eating emotionally or by staying up really late, even
Yeah.
though we didn't want to, but we stay up really late. When somebody told me it's called revenge bedtime,
Yeah.
revenge. So it's that kind of feeling, and then we go about life feeling resentful
Yeah.
because we haven't taken time for ourselves, and it doesn't take much time. Like you said, 20 minutes to do a little workout in the morning. Me too. In the morning, it's like I do 2 times 10 minutes. So I do a 10-minute meditation. I do a 10-minute journaling session, what part of which is some gratitude journaling as well. It just starts me off really well. And I always make time for some sort of exercise during the day, whether I get outside for a walk.
Yeah.
Ideally, I get outside every single day, or I have some sort of workout. I go to the pool or I go to the gym. But I'm starting to do more and more because I see the benefits on myself, and I see that I like myself more when I'm with other people when I am in that state, when I take care of me.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. No, and that's definitely something that I definitely want to continue to do more of is yeah, to just go outside more, right? Because I think with the pandemic, we're just so used to, being inside and not realizing that sometimes the whole day can pass and you haven't even gone outside, maybe except to, in my case, to pick up the kids, right? So I think it's I think it's very important. I mean, not just for exercise, but actually for kind of your mental health as well, because um, going outside, getting that sun, especially one thing, tying it back to sleep is that if you're able to kind of time it with when the sun rises and when the sun sets, that actually can help you reset your internal clock too, for your body to know, kind of naturally when to kind of wake up and when to go back to sleep. So I think if you can time it with those, the red lights, that actually works out really well for sleep as well.
Yeah, I've read that about that too, that they've studied that and just that light, that daylight in the eyes of there's a certain frequency of light in
Yeah.
the morning and at night. And if our eyes take that in, it actually sets, I mean, the circadian rhythm, which is just a rhythm between melatonin, which
Mhm.
we create naturally in our bodies, and cortisol.
Yep,
So we
exactly.
get our cortisol and melatonin dance
Mhm.
getting more rhythm, a better rhythm. So just by that, I just find that fascinating, but it makes so much sense. We haven't always had clocks. We haven't always had
Yeah,
lights in the
exactly.
house, right? The way we knew it was time to go to sleep or time to wind down is because there was no light. We had to go to sleep. We had to do those things. So now we could stay up till all hours and not
Yes.
know what time it is. And that is one of the problems that we do have with sleep is we can be in light and even daylight almost with the bright lights that we do have almost all day long, and our body gets very confused.
Yes, I know, I totally agree, and then, yeah, yeah, I mean, another thing to do is just kind of like dim down the lights towards the evening for throughout the house, right? Or use red light. You know,
Hmm.
that will help kind of, kind of get that sense, right? That to your body that it's kind of getting close.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so good. Yeah, just turning down all the lights as after a certain hour, as you're just trying to wind down, trying to feel sleepy, is to turn down the lights and the red light too, that frequency of red light, as opposed to blue light, which kind of wakes us up and
Yeah.
stimulates us. We had the red light, that frequency actually can calm us down and actually, which is so funny because you wouldn't think based on the color that you'd think it would be the reverse. But it's not. Red light is actually good for sleep. So they do sell red light for your bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, infrared. So yeah, it's amazing. All these little tricks. We're tying it all back to
I know,
sleep again.
tying a lot of back to sleep. And I think another thing, that's also good to try for sleeping, for relaxation as you're going to bed, is to try different ways I guess it's different forms of meditation, but one is like the progressive muscle relaxation, right? So where you're kind of tensing and flexing different muscle groups. So that can help you calm your body down, get ready to sleep. And another one, kind of similarly is around deep breath work, right? So, like there's many different kinds, and people who've tried different methods, but for example, you can just breathe in deeply, right? And raising the belly, right, for 4 seconds and holding it for 7, and then breathing out really slowly for 8 seconds, right? To kind of help calm the nerves down within your body. And then also guided imagery. I think that's another one that sometimes works for people where you're kind of envisioning, a calm, peaceful place, right? And just really trying to picture and smell it and feel it, right? So then and then that kind of helps distract you from all the things that are going on in your brain and can help you have a sense of calm. So yeah, I mean, so these are kind of another set of things you could arm yourself in that toolbox you had mentioned, right? Just to see what will work for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love those ideas. That guided imagery, like I know on YouTube there's all kinds of them you can go into and probably on some of these apps as well, like the Calm app or Headspace app where you can just tune into to that and just totally relax or at least zoom out of what is going on in your brain and tune into something else. Like you said, a bit of distraction for your brain, which is so good. But yeah, these are all really great ideas for trying to just calm your mind and the breath. I mean, I teach yoga, so I'm all about the breathing. I'm all about the especially the exhale. The exhale is where you get the calming effect. It's where your whole body can just let go, relax. It's a cue to do that. So if you can really focus, like you said, on making the exhale as long as possible, that can really calm your body. And that you can take anywhere you
Yes.
go. Your breath is everywhere with you. Even if it's, you need to calm yourself because you have to give a presentation or, you're stressed out at work, you can just breathe 5 times and that will just calm you. But also great for falling asleep or getting back to sleep if you wake up. So that was a really good one too. I love the breathing. The breathing is is perfect
Yeah,
because it's just we all have it. If
yeah,
you're alive, you're breathing. So you
yeah,
can always focus on the breath, even if
yeah.
you can't find any of the other tools. You always have that one. So that's really good. So, is there anything else that you would want to add to this conversation today?
I mean, I just think, it's important to be women to be aware. I mean, I think inevitably, like most women will have sleep issues, as they're hitting this stage in their life. And, so it's completely normal to experience them. And, but not to, lose heart and just say like, like there's nothing you can do about it. I think that's what I'm trying to advocate also in the book is just that you have the power, right, to take control over your symptoms, right? So you're not powerless against them. And I think oftentimes, some women may kind of hear that, like, oh, I don't know what to do with all these symptoms. Like I just feel like I can't manage them. But I think if you take a step back and and see the things you can do from a lifestyle changes, right, as well as targeted symptom relief, that you can gain back control. So, yeah, so I think that's one thing I want to make sure that women are aware of, that you don't have to just, just suffer through. And I think that's what I think sometimes women feel like they have to do. So,
Yeah, I love that message because we don't have to suffer through this. And it can be just so simple. It can be as simple as breathing.
mhm,
Making a small change like that can change your whole thing, can help you sleep. But it is very normal for women at this time of life to have sleep issues. So if anybody in the audience right now is having sleep issues, it is very, very, very common at this time of life. And it just means that maybe something in your routine needs to change. But there are so many tools here that Sia's shared and that we've talked about that could help you. And it really, they're all very simple. There's nothing complicated, and it really is in your control. You do not have to be suffering. And if nothing does work, like you mentioned, you can go and there is hormone therapy if needed. It doesn't work for everyone either, but depends on what your symptoms are as well. But those are other options. There
yeah,
are other options out there. So if you do need to get medical attention because of it, go and do that. Don't
yes,
put that off.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Because
I agree with that too, because I feel, there's two things, like, I mean, regarding like um, hormone replacement therapy, right? There's kind of stigma, right? Or kind of that negative, um, uh, I guess, I would say, like, um, negative press it's gotten, right, in the past.
yeah.
It leading to cancer. But if you dig more into the study, you realize that it was a flawed study, and that it's not the case. And so I think it prevented not just a lot of women from taking it, but a lot of doctors from prescribing it too. So,
Yes.
so, and I think that's slowly changing, but it's going to take more time. And so women do have to advocate for themselves, at the doctor's office too, if they feel like, what, I've tried a lot of things, it's not working. Sometimes you could try all the different lifestyle changes and you're still going to experience, horrible hot flashes, or sleep deprivation, then you need alternatives, right? So, and I think that's something you need to make sure that you advocate for yourself, with your physicians.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It should be our choice.
Mhm.
And we do have that choice. These products do exist. They are out there. Yes, we have to look beyond the media coverage and actually, you can find the facts for yourself. There's lots of studies out there. There's lots of books out there that will tell you that it's actually fairly safe to take. And in fact, the benefits will probably outweigh any of the negative effects, if any.
Mhm.
So, if you feel like you need to go there and you want to go there, even
Yeah,
go
yeah,
get it. I mean, there's no point in being miserable for this period of time, which we don't know how long it is. It could be 10 years, 15
yes,
years, even.
yes,
We don't know. So it's a long time to not be sleeping, to not be feeling good.
exactly.
So yeah, you really need to get help. I mean, there are a lot of lifestyle changes you can make, and quite possibly one or a few of them will make all the difference, but there's also possibility it won't, and then maybe something else will. So please do not lose heart. Like you said, just you go and you check all your options. You've got all the options out there. Nothing is taboo or shouldn't be taboo. Everything should be open to you. So yeah, I think that's a really important message. I don't think we're here to judge anybody either way. You
No.
know, it's not about that. We're not going to judge anyone. Everybody has, I remember, I always think of breastfeeding when I think of this,
Yes.
but when I had my kids, breastfeeding, it was like, oh, you have to breastfeed. You have
Yes.
to,
Yes.
you must. And I remember struggling with breastfeeding so much and feeling like such a failure. And you know what? It is not, everybody is different. We have our unique journey. You say that in the title of your book, your unique journey. We all have that journey, and that could include hormone therapy. It might not. It's really up to you, but we're no place to judge somebody else's journey.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. And everyone, and that's exactly it, right? Everyone's journey is unique. So what works for some women will not work for others. And so you just have to figure out arming yourself with the knowledge, but figure out what will work best for you.
Yes. Yes. So good. So good. Well, this was such an important discussion. I think, see, like this was a really good discussion, and it's nice to speak to somebody who's doing very similar work to me, who's gone through, looking at similar things and been through a similar path. So it's really nice to have this discussion, and I think we gave lots of ideas and tools out there for sleep and specifically, but also for other things. And I think the last thing you said is so key. We have to advocate for ourselves, and we need to be our number one advocate. Nobody's going to do that for you. So you do need to go and do that. So, so good. So before you go, though, I do want to ask the question, which I ask all my guests, is what's the best part of getting older for you?
Yeah, I think the best part for me is that I feel like inside more confident than I've ever been in my life. Because I feel when you're in your 20s and 30s, you really care what people think, right? You're always looking for that reward, or you're looking for other people to kind of make you feel important, I guess. But now I think as you're entering your 40s and 50s, you realize that you have your values, you have your beliefs, and it's just as important, and you don't need it to be validated by anyone else. Like you are complete the way you are, and I don't think I could have known that in my 20s and 30s. But I think now I'm realizing in my I'm 49 now, that finally that I am complete the way I am, and it's really about being your authentic self. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's so true that as we age, and I think that's one of the beautiful parts of midlife and beyond, is that so many of us anyways come to that idea that I'm good the way I am. You try so much of your life trying to fit in and be like everybody else, and the parts of you that are different, you kind of feel bad about and try to hide them. But I think as we get older, we're a bit more, we take more ownership of that and maybe feel even better that we have these parts of us that are different and special. So I really love what you said, and I love your answer. So if any women in my audience, and it is, I think all women in my audience, want to learn more about you, or they want to get your book, how can they do those things?
yes, my book is available on Amazon. It's Menopause, A Guide to Your Unique Journey. But you can also check out my website at sharedadmiration.com, or follow me on Instagram at sharedadmiration.
Okay, so simple, shared admiration.
Yeah.
And I will share the admiration on the show notes. I'll share all the links on the show notes for C. So if you want to go grab her book, you can on Amazon. And I think it's on all the Amazons, wherever you happen to be. I know she's in the States, we're in Canada here, but I think you can get it on your version of Amazon. and as well, just finding her on Instagram and her website. I'm going to have all that information, see, in the show notes so they can get in touch with you. But I do want to thank you for being here today. I think it was a valuable conversation. I think it's needed that we talk more about these things openly. And yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Great. All right.